Grave threat. That's what Justice Sonia Sotomayor said about the decision, I guess is the word, that the Supreme Court handed down 6-3. This was on their shadow docket. In other words, there were no public hearings. There was no arguments made before the court. An issue was presented to them. Several federal lower courts had ruled on this. So here's the story, and this falls into the kind of the testing category. The Constitution says that Congress can create agencies within the federal government. Congress can appropriate funds for them. Congress can mandate that they exist and what their functions are, like, say, the Department of Education. Congress created that. And according to the Constitution, when Congress says, here's $10 million to run the Education Department, you're the president. Article 2 of the Constitution, which is about the executive branch, says that the president must, this is shall or must, one of those two words, same effect, take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Now, the laws, of course, are what are made by Congress. So for 249 years in the United States, we have operated under the assumption, and in fact, this was confirmed by the Supreme Court in a case about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that had to do with Nixon trying to withhold money, that we've operated under the principle that if Congress appropriates the money and creates the institution, the president has to run it, has to fund it, has to make it work. And so Trump can't just say, no, we don't want the Education Department anymore, and no, I'm not going to spend the money, because those things are illegal, unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court has already ruled that. So instead, what he's doing is he's firing everyone there, effectively shutting down the agency because there's nobody to come to work. So this went before, two lower courts, a federal district court and a federal appeals court, both said, you can't do that, Trump. That's just a fancy way of getting around the fact that you don't want to spend the money and have the agency exist. And Congress said it should. And Congress is the first among equals. Congress gets to make these decisions, not the president. You do not have a line item veto in the United States. But, for reasons unknown, because there was no decision issued, or no explanation issued other than the simple decision, the 6 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court said, hey, no problem. Go ahead and do it. And Justice Sotomayor writes, this decision is indefensible. It hands the executive the power to repeal statutes by firing all those necessary to carry them out. The majority is either willfully blind to the implications of its ruling or naive. But either way, the threat to our Constitution's separation of powers is grave. She says, when the executive publicly announces its intent to break the law and then executes that on that promise, it is the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not to expedite it. I mean, this is wild stuff. Trump is breaking the law right in front of everybody, and you got 6 justices on the Supreme Court say, yeah, that's cool. Which raises the question, why? I mean, I get it that Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito live inside the Fox News bubble, so much so that Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny, is constantly spewing, these wild conspiracy theories and, all this nutty stuff that you get off Fox and right-wing media. And maybe increasingly, maybe entirely, that's the case with the other 4. But we have 6 justices on the Supreme Court that are just violating the Constitution left and right as far as now I'm not an attorney, but a lot of attorneys and federal judges, including conservative judges, famous conservative federal judges like Michael Ludick, are coming out and saying this is just wrong. Which raises the question, why are these 6 people on the Supreme Court doing this? Is it that they hate democracy the same way Trump does? That they want to see him turn this country into an autocracy, into a dictatorship? Is it that they want to have, dear leader, that they want to have an autocrat running the country? That's one possibility. Is it that they're being paid off to do this? Is it that they know that if they start going against Trump and the Republicans, The billionaires who are supporting them and giving them vacations and flying them around the world and paying for their kids' school and giving them a cushy lifestyle, essentially, all that money will dry up. Is that it? Are they afraid that the gravy train will end? Or is it like, this one federal judge who this guy dressed like a pizza delivery guy came to her front door, knocked on the door, her son answered the door, and he shot him dead. And then her husband, she was down in the basement, her husband came out to see what was going on, and he shot her husband. Now, her husband survived, but by that time, she had, I don't recall the details after that point, but he never got to her, bottom line, and the police got him, but he showed up as a pizza delivery guy to kill a federal judge who had ruled against Trump. And what's happened now? Hundreds of federal judges have gotten pizzas delivered to their houses in the middle of the night. And this is, of course, the right-wing way of saying, we know where you live. You could be next. You don't want to be like that judge, do you? Is that why these 6 justices on the Supreme Court are going along with Trump? Is it that they're just terrified? I mean, none of them are super rich. They live in, high-end fancy neighborhoods in Georgetown and whatnot like that, and they have some security. But it's not like they're living, it's not like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. They're not living in impregnable fortresses, essentially. Are they terrified? I don't know. What do you think?